Welcome to the Top Advisor Marketing Podcast brought to you by ProudMouth. I'm your host, Matt Halloran. Being your own loud is not new to marketing, but the mindset, strategies, and resources to help you get there are evolving faster than this industry is keeping up. It is time to find a new perspective on what works why and how to move your business forward. Listen as I interview guests to help you learn from them how to be your own loud. Let's get to the show. Hello and welcome to another Top Advisor Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Halloran. You know, I love going to conferences because you get to meet really cool people. And I was at a conference, I don't know, about a year ago, and I walked over to this table full of actually some of the most impressive people I have met. And so there was Dana Wilson who was sitting there, Keena Pettijohn was sitting there, Liv from Choir was sitting there, and my guest today was sitting there. And my guest today was the only person I didn't know. And I'm like, man, she's sitting with all these really freaking cool people. She's got to be pretty cool. And within minutes, I thought that she was going to be somebody who I wanted to have a relationship with just because of your energy, your knowledge, your experience, your wisdom, and your personality. So Kellan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matt. And it goes both ways. I will say when you came up and had the conversation, that's the one thing I love about you. We share that. Some people think it's a little bit wild energy, but it's authentic and I love it. And you're so outgoing and embracing. So thank you.
Yes, I call it my Muppetness. And so, and that's something that, some people, Kellan, really like and some people don't. Now let's talk very, very briefly about who you are. And then I really want to talk about what, since you've gotten into this position, one of the neat things that's happened is you're consistently interacting with very influential people in financial services. So that's part two. So let's just take a couple of minutes here and why don't you give a brief history of who Kellan Brown is?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So I typically kick this off with my personal vision statement. So kind of end with that and then go backwards a little bit. So I wrote this last year and it's to be the strongest mentor in work and life, so that all people will survive their most challenging obstacles and come out their best selves to then pay it forward. So I typically start with that because that really is the foundation of who I am. But on a surface level and in writing, I am the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships for Finance of America Reverse. And I got into the financial service industry about 2.5 years ago. My career spans sports marketing, construction, and now financial services. And one of the biggest things I've learned across those three industries has been that mentorship doesn't change. And so that has been the driving force for the foundation of what I do with my teams. And I get to share that across whatever role I'm playing in. So, yeah.
Well, one of the cool things about being this, strategic partner person, at FAR is you are interacting with people. I mean, those people at that table, they're freaking powerhouses in financial services, right? And this is who you're constantly swimming with. So you and I both share a fundamental desire to change financial services in a way that makes people want to be more authentic, more unique, more themselves, and obviously offer better products and services to advisors. What have you been learning since you've been in financial services from these influencers and what influence really truly means to you?
Yeah. So Matt, you've been with me on a lot of these tables now. When we sit in on those DEI think tanks, or if we're doing roundtables or breakout sessions, the conversation always comes up of how can you actually make impact? And those influencers and those very now good, dear friends that we're talking about, their platforms to be able to speak on is one thing. But the second part is what's the action, right? So I've aligned myself with many people that I've actually seen results from. So Jean Heath, what a beautiful gift. She has implemented a mentorship program with the InvestNet students that are coming out of college to then actually enter into the industry. Jamie Hopkins, another one, was just invited to sit on the FinServ Foundation Board of Directors. He started that same, bringing those students across the country into the industry and how we can help empower them and diversify that group to get into the industry. Do I need to say anything about Dana Wilson? She's a powerhouse with Chip, and then being a sponsor in the industry, there's something very different than being an influencer or someone that's being asked to speak. You have a different power that a lot of people don't really understand. And that's the power of recognizing the right people on those panels, and then also being able to sponsor specific companies. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but that's really what it comes down to.
I think it's fascinating because I rarely have somebody on the show who is such an aggressive sponsor. And I think that's with all kindness. I mean, you guys have sponsored so much at really, really high levels. How do you make the decision on who you are going to spend your time? Because Kellan, I've experienced this with you. You're being pulled in 19 different directions because everybody wants your ear. How do you, and by proxy, your organization, make influencer decisions in order to further the FAR brand?
Okay, I love this question. So Finance of America Reverse built 3 pillars of what's important to us. And one of those pillars is becoming a beloved brand. Yeah, very different than what you would think of a reverse mortgage company. But think about who we're serving. The broader public, the elder, your mother, your grandmother, that is a very big piece of who we are. And so when we came into the financial service space with a mission to be able to educate advisors on how they can utilize home equity in a retirement plan, I said, okay, this is what they need to learn, but I want them to understand who we are. And then I want to align with the right people so that we can make change in the industry, just like we can make change with people's minds of what a reverse mortgage is, to make an impact. So when we started going down the path of which conferences made sense to align with, or who do I want to bring into panels, it was people that served that same mission of becoming a beloved brand and making sure that they're taking action. I talk a lot on mentorship, and you're gonna hear this a lot throughout this 30 minutes, but it's not about being a mentor to one person. It's about teaching organizations how to implement an effective program into your company so that you can continue to pay that forward, and teach them how to understand which mentorship program makes sense for their organization, whether it's a return on investment, whether it's making sure the matching is correct, whether, there's 3 different ways to do mentorship that I push, but that's really where you see impact from what you truly believe in.
Now, after that explanation, I am sure that there are listeners thinking to themselves, holy crap, Matt brought on a reverse mortgage company on the podcast. Now, I did this for a number of reasons, but this next question is the main reason, which is you guys are in a space that hasn't always had the greatest image. This happens with financial services professionals. So remember, our audience are independent financial advisors. That's who listens to the show. And some of them have had missteps before, or some of them have maybe affiliated with somebody who they shouldn't have. And you guys are, so one of our sayings here is rise above the noise, right? You have truly risen above the noise. Your organization is really sweeping change in how advisors look at a product and a service that is a great financial planning tool where most people have the majority of their money in their equity anyway, which we don't have to dive into that deeply. But what has been your plan? So beloved brand, I get, and all men to that, sister, that's brilliant. But how do you, what sort of steps have you guys been taking to really change the ethos surrounding who you are?
Yeah, so partnerships was the first big piece. It was aligning with the right organizations so that 1, the respect was there, but 2, we had the platform to truly educate the people that were open to listening. So the Financial Planning Association. So we sit as a cornerstone partner with them, and we have for, I think this is going on our 5th year now. We provide continuing education credits. That's a big one. A lot of people have an idea of what home equity is or how it can impact their retirement plan. Take a listen to one of our courses. Stephen Resch is a practicing wealth advisor. He has been for over 25 years now. He is the one delivering this message because it is our goal to give you a proactive way to utilize that massive asset that is likely your largest, to your point, Matt, and put it into that plan. The other one was Morningstar. So This was a 6-month sprint of how can we make sure we are positioned to show Morningstar that we truly are the best reverse mortgage lender, because they were going to find one. And the difference between us, yes, it is making sure that we are showing that we are that beloved brand, but it's also the process of how we do our loans and how we serve the industry. So that was a really big one. And I think that went live December. So Morningstar was another big one. And then it's just being strategic about the advisors that you're working with, ones that are truly going to be open to something that might disrupt something normal. And we created Home Equity U. We have white papers all over the place now. I came into the reverse mortgage space because I knew there was opportunity here, and financial planning is one of my greatest passions. But FAR really gave me the platform to say, we're going to develop business and partners the right way, and we're going to appreciate and honor their mission as much as ours.
You guys have created a substantial amount of content, which of course we know content is king. That's how everybody needs to market. You have all of these magnificent resources that we have something called the perfect podcasting formula here, which is storytelling, education, entertainment, call to action. You have really, your stories are amazing. You are wildly entertaining. You're fun to listen to because of your passion. Your education platform is really, truly amazing. But you partnered with somebody else that I do want to highlight, because the last time we talked, you were there. And when you talk about influencers, right, and you talk about some of the most influential people in financial services, so yes, FPA, huge, Morningstar, huge. Carson is at a different level, right? And I want to touch on that because, a lot of people don't understand the power of really using an influencer in the space that they are an influencer. So with Jamie and Ron specifically, and the lift that gave you guys with two hugely influential people in financial services saying, you need to reconsider this. Let's talk about the strategy behind that.
Yeah. So so I met Jamie Hopkins sitting on the Academy for Home Equity and Retirement Planning. We created this academy in an effort to raise awareness with other reverse lenders and educate advisors on how you could use this. So Jamie really spearheaded that at the college. We became very close friends very quickly. And at that time, he got wind of what I was trying to do on the mentorship path. I think he was really trying to understand, okay, they're doing this a little bit different now with advisors than other lenders are. And then we started speaking on things together and all of that. So I will say, yes, the power of friendship and people that support and believe in your work is probably the biggest and most important piece here when it came to Carson. And then when we started partnering with the same organizations, i.e. the FPA, it gave us an opportunity to speak together. Ron, I had the privilege of meeting, obviously through Jamie, and then he got wind of my story, and he's just become a huge advocate for us. But yeah, that's really how that developed. It was really just, you're looking for hard workers that truly believe in change. And so he invited me to sit on the FinServe Foundation Board of Directors.
So all of you who are listening to this might be thinking to yourself, Matt, how is that applicable to me being a Main Street financial advisor? I'll tell you how, darn it. And here's what it is, right? You need to find somebody within your local community who has that level of influence. A rising tide lifts all boats. When you start partnering and really looking at strategic partners and centers of influence differently, what you just said, Kellan, you found somebody who you felt a connection with, who believed in the same fundamental mentorship mission, because I know Jamie does, so does Ron. You have things that are much deeper connections than just products and services and what you offer. That's how real business relationships should be built. And I want everybody to hear that. This isn't just hitching your wagon to the next shiny object. This is finding somebody who shares your morals, shares your values, shares your vision, and shares your passion for changing something specifically. And every advisor listening to this, I'm going to digress very quickly. I don't talk this much usually, but this is an important illustration. I have a friend of mine in Brentwood, Tennessee. I think he's in Brentwood, Tennessee. Anyway, his financial services office has this prison puppy program. They call it the PPP, right? And so what he does is he sponsors puppies going into prisons, and these active inmates train these puppies to be service dogs. Because of this is his heart. He loves dogs and he really wants to. I don't know if you've ever seen anything on that. By the way, Google that stuff. It's amazing. But the change that he's making within his community, and since that feeds his soul, the relationships that are now being drawn to him, much like Kellan, what people are being drawn to you, has built it's made it his firm explode. And you think about it, it's like prison puppies. Like, how did that grow his business? Because it's about the heart. It's not always about the head.
And Matt, I think there's something else to be said for that. Part of my nature is giving and paying it forward. My history comes from a family of organ donors, believe it or not. My brother is a recipient for heart and 3 separate kidneys now. Both my parents have donated and both my sisters, or one of my sisters has donated. And the reason I tell that story is because anytime there's an opportunity to step up and speak to someone, whether that be a student, a colleague, talking about mentorship implementation into Carson, we just actually did this last week. I'm going to take that call, and it's typically at no charge, because the greatest thing for me is seeing the fulfillment and success or ideas that are created from someone else and how they can continue to pay that forward. So I think a lot of that is part of it. And it doesn't mean you make this commitment for 6 months. This is just, that one-off meeting to have a conversation, support someone, and sometimes just being able to listen, because sometimes people just need to be heard. And so I think there's that aspect too of listening and becoming an influencer. It's not just talking at people, but maybe just giving you their ear.
I never really realized the true power of that until recently. I mean, within the last 2 or 3 years, a young man who's a coach reached out to me on LinkedIn, and he said, listen, I've been listening to your podcast. I'm not a financial advisor, but I really love what you're doing. I was wondering if I could get 15 minutes of your time. First off, it takes a lot to ask somebody for that. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? That was a good move, man. And I've had 5 or 6 conversations with him. I've never charged him any. He never would even think about that. And he will every once in a while message me and say, hey, I implemented that thing that you said. In Kellan, not to be mean, and Steven's going to listen to this, I don't remember what I said, because that's not the point. It's mostly that it's just that reflection that you are able to do, and having somebody know that you are listening and that you care. And I think that that's one of the greatest gifts that we can have. And I think more and more of us are starting to realize the power of that. And that's what we'd rather lead with, instead of, self-serving sort of things. Because look, we're in business. I'm not hiding that. I'm here to not only change the industry, but I'd actually like to make a little bit of money. But I don't lead with that, right? I want to fundamentally change the way financial advisors look at marketing, because influence is the only marketing left. That's it. That's why I wake up in the morning. If I make money on the back end, woohoo! So anyway, okay. So I have 2 more questions for you. So one of the cool things that's happened with ProudMouth recently is we were actually talked about as being a disruptor in the marketing space in financial services, but you were recognized as a finalist as a disruptor category at the Wealthies. Let's talk about what that meant, and what do you think about being labeled as a disruptor?
Oh, I love it. Let's be real. Everything is happening so quickly right now in every industry. So if you're not testing the waters constantly, you are not going to keep up with it. So that was probably the biggest compliment we got from wealth management when they called us and said, hey, you are a finalist as a disruptor for the Wealthies. And the reason we were selected was because of our Home Equity U platform. And if you go to homeequityu.com, you'll find all of those pieces that we're talking about right now of how to utilize and implement reverse mortgages into a retirement plan, and then taking it just that one step further of the educational aspect, the partnerships, all of the white papers, and then bringing in that thought leadership and mentorship aspect to the space. And we were ready to be the biggest and loudest name in the reverse mortgage space for financial services, and man, did we do it.
Well, I'm sure that there are going to be people who want to know more. So let's just take a moment. Where can people find you? Where should they go? And who should talk to you?
Yes. So who should talk to me is financial advisors that are looking for a solution that they might not have investigated enough, which is home equity. And we have webinars that you can sign up for, again, that will provide those CE credits. But if you just want to have a conversation about it, yes, contact me at kellan.brown@far.com. So FAR.com. And if you're a student or a financial professional in this space that is looking for some type of mentorship track, I would also reach out. And like I said, I will usually take any call if I'm available to do it. And you will definitely see me in the conference circuit. So just pull me aside and let's have a cup of coffee and catch up and get to know each other, because that is the greatest gift. And I know this industry can be exhausting sometimes. But when you find the right people that you can lean on, and when you find that circle and that community that raises you up just a little bit more to keep fighting that fight, it is such a gift.
We'll make sure that we have those links in our show notes. So my final question for you is this: what should I have asked you that I didn't?
We didn't talk about choir, and I'd love to talk a little bit about choir. So, okay. So for all of the advisors that are listening, if you have good friends that are big sponsors of conferences like Finance of America Reverses, push them a little bit to push the needle with companies like Choir. And if you're listening and you don't know what Choir does, they bring in a team to actually put each conference through a certification process to determine if the speakers are what the diversity level is. And so when I got wind of what Liv and Sonia were doing, I wanted to see if we could make an impact there. So we utilized our partnership and sponsorship with the FPA and said, if you can't afford to bring Choir in, we're going to make them a part of our partnership, our sponsorship. So we have sponsored Choir as part of our relationship with the FPA so that they can evaluate the conferences that the FPA hosts to determine what their diversity level is as speakers. So for all of those advisors that are listening, for all of those financial professionals that are listening, pay attention to the power that you have, because if it's not your voice, if you're not on a platform, if you don't have the influence, use the dollars and bring in the people that can make change.
I can't wait to see you on the conference circuit, sister. I know that our paths will cross a lot. I thank you for all of this great wisdom, and thank you for all of the great mentorship work that you do in financial services. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Matt. And thank you for being a light in everybody's eyes when you walk in the door. It's such a gift.
Thank you for that. There was a lot that we covered in this today, everybody. And I want everybody to realize that influence really is the only marketing left. And Kellan highlighted so many aspects of what it's like to be a sponsor and have influence, what it's like to really have relationships to accelerate your influence, and really what it means to be a disruptor within the industry. If any of those things appeal to you, please join our PodRocket Academy. It's really, really important for you here in the years to come to understand that influence is the only marketing left. And the most important thing, it's freaking free. Come in, learn. It doesn't have to be just about podcasting. If you want to start a podcast, we got your stuff. But if you want to do video, if you want to do blogs, if you need SEO, if you need branding, we've got it in the Academy. So go ahead and click on that link too. Go to podrocketacademy.com and join today. So for Kellan, everybody at FAR, and all of us here at ProudMouth, this is Matt Halloran, and we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon. Thanks for listening to the Top Advisor Marketing Podcast, brought to you by ProudMouth. If you want to know more about how you can be your own loud, visit us at ProudMouth.com and sign up for the PodRocket Academy. Through courses and office hours led by professional podcast producers and digital marketers, you will learn everything you need to know to become the trusted subject matter expert you were meant to be.